So I come to making my jewelry from a place of the power behind the piece. That's why I like to use the word, amulet or talisman, because I do think that it is all about intention, a lot of what we do in this world. So wearing pieces and feeling like protected is a big thing for me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's some past life thing where I was some warrior. I had to be a warrior.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I talk with fascinating, talented, and inspiring guests who reflect on the adventures and challenges of aging and who are living their lives with vibrance and purpose. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist, writer, and fellow Zestful Ager. I want to invite you to my brand new free webinar, Zestful Aging. Here's how you do it. Many of my clients tell me that they're stretched too thin with too many demands upon them. They're just worn out. In my brand new webinar, I teach simple and sensible habits that will significantly improve your life now and help you age with vibrance and resilience. But it's important to start now. Don't wait until your body's distress signals go from a whisper to a scream. If you've followed me at all, you know I'm not about restrictive diets or boot camps. I believe life can be challenging enough. Let's appreciate our bodies and minds for the miraculous systems they are and take the time to take care of ourselves. Self-care pays big dividends now and in the future. And being well ourselves is the only way we can help those we love. And if you sign up now, I will send you my super Zestful Aging checklist, which I designed so you have clear guidelines right at your fingertips. The webinar is free. You can sign up at NicoleChristina.com. And as always, I appreciate your feedback. Well, I have my Jack Russell Terrier Sparky right beside me and my coffee in my hand. So let's begin. Today's guest is Michelle DaRin, who is a jewelry artist and designer. Michelle is speaking to us today from her art studio, which is a vintage Airstream trailer that sits on her 8-acre wooded property in upstate New York. Michelle uses ancient symbolism to make one-of-a-kind amulets of adornment, and her customers say wearing these pieces makes them feel powerful. Welcome to Zestful Aging, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm very well. You know, we have a slight disadvantage because we're audio, but your work obviously is so visual, and I'm wondering if you could paint a picture for our listeners what a classic Michelle DaRin piece might look like.
Well, I do have sort of different lines, I guess I would say. One of the most iconic pieces that I wear all the time is this winged lotus is what I call it. And it's a big stone, probably about 4 inches wide with these two wings attached and then a lotus on top. And it's heavy and I feel like it's a protective piece for me. That's probably one of my pieces you'll see me wearing all the time. But I also do a lot of delicate pieces as well that have cast bronze charms that speak to me, and I always have 2 very big rings on. Usually colorful, either stones or enameled copper. And again, those kind of make me feel like I'm ready. When I put those on, I'm good to go.
You're saying things that maybe people don't usually associate with jewelry. You said I have this protective piece. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, one of the things that drew me to making jewelry was, as an undergrad, I started working with metal, steel, bronze, aluminum, big pieces, iron pours, and I loved it. I just felt like, when you have that moment where you're like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started moving into making jewelry during my graduate career, and it just, I don't know, it just feels like when you look at ancient jewelry or even tribal jewelry that I am really drawn to, all those pieces have a meaning behind them. A lot of times they're maybe connected to a ritual. So I come to making my jewelry from a place of that sort of um, the power behind the piece. That's why I like to use the word, amulet or talisman, because I do think that, it is all about intention, a lot of what we do in this world. So wearing pieces and feeling like protected is a big thing for me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's some past life thing where I was some warrior, I had to be a warrior, but I do put my jewelry on and feel like it's a form of protection. And I do tell people that some of the pieces could be, used as a weapon if need be. And that's just, I don't know where it comes from. I think it's just what it feels like for me with jewelry.
There's a
Um,
story behind it. It's not just something pretty to go with your outfit.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is pretty and it will go with your outfit because that's important to me too, believe me.
Okay.
But, there's definitely something behind that. And, I get feedback from my customers all the time that, especially my angels, I do a lot of guardian angels, and people just feel like, oh my God, that just they can feel the energy behind it, and I think that's kind of bigger than me. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, and that's sort of the gift. So
Wow, that's really interesting. And has this developed? You mentioned an undergrad, you were doing different kind of work, and then you started getting into these metals and these bigger, heavier pieces. Can you take us through a little bit, your development as you've gotten older, how your jewelry making and the spirituality, it sounds like, behind that has evolved?
yeah, I mean, like I said, when I was in an undergrad, I studied sculpture, and they didn't have metalsmithing, jewelry making classes, but I loved working with the big, I loved welding and doing these big metal pours. That also felt for me really powerful. Not a whole lot of people have that type of experience where they're pouring, bronze at 3,500 degrees. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It does feel very powerful. But then I think I think it was meant to be that I started there, because then when I my path was a little interesting. When I was young, I had my oldest son, Ian, and I was still in undergraduate school. I finished up after he was born, and then my second son was born, and then I decided I was going to go back to school to be an art teacher. My husband's a teacher, and it just seemed like this will be great. Be on the same schedule, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be still doing art, and it'll be good. So I was working on my master's in art education, and then I was just itchy to get back in the studio. I had two kids, I had been home for a while, and I was like, I want to make stuff. So I started getting back into sculpture and doing these big metal pours, and then I took metalsmithing, and it was, everybody talks about that aha moment. That's where it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to take all of that sort of, intensity and, you know, everything that I would put into my sculpture pieces, the big pieces, I just started putting into small pieces that people could wear. So I come from a place very much of it being pieces of art, um, and just wearable. So I don't think I would have gotten where I am now if I hadn't had that whole experience of, being a sculptor and then moving into metalsmithing. So I ended up getting 2 degrees in my master's in art education and then in metalsmithing. And it was a great experience being in a fine art program. I had all the sculpture studio access to doing these big pieces and casting resin and, all just great experience. But then metalsmithing, we had etching and we had enameling and we had casting and we had forging. And so I really have a lot of experience with various materials, and I think that really informs my work because I'm able to do things that a lot of jewelers aren't doing or don't do because they might be coming at it from a more traditional kind of perspective. So
That's fascinating. So this is only one expression of what you know how to do and your experience. Were there other women? I'm trying to imagine you with these big metal pours, Were there other women doing this, or did you find yourself with big burly men?
it's really funny because I was thinking this morning about this podcast and just sort of my inspiration. And one of the first big inspirations for me was this woman, artist Louise Bourgeois. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she does these huge steel spiders and cells that are just like very intimate and intense. And her work really spoke to me. And I remember seeing a picture of her in my sculpture class, and she was a very short French woman, and she was quite a bit older when she was doing these very large pieces. And I had the opportunity to take my 2 boys when I was in graduate school. This was a while ago, like 15 years ago, to her salon. She would have in New York City in her apartment. You could come in, bring your artwork, and you could talk with her. It was sort of
wow.
it was such a trip. It really was. And I have to find these photos. I just can't find these old photos of my boys there. But and my oldest went on to study design as well. So it's just, I have a lot of memories connected to being in the foundry, and there were a lot of women there. The other woman that was a big mentor for me is this woman, Mary Gale, and she taught sculpture, and she is probably 5'3". I don't know. She's not very tall. A powerhouse though. And then I also had another classmate who was studying sculpture, who was also a petite, strong woman. And another woman that was in the studio at the time is a woman, Arlene Abend, who, very much like Louise Bourgeois. I don't know exactly how old Arlene is right now, but she's in her 80s, and she's still creating sculpture, and she's amazing. So these were the people that were around me. There were plenty of big burly men, don't get me wrong. And the artist that ran the program was a man named Roger Mack, who in Syracuse, in the area, everybody knows who Roger is. He's just was a wonderful man, and he unfortunately got melanoma and passed away while I was doing my graduate degree, and it was a huge loss for the program and for the school. And everything has really changed a lot since then, but there was this really wonderful community that was happening when I was there, where Roger was the type of person who, when I came in, I had 2 kids. My husband was working. He was, doing everything he could to, like you can imagine, we didn't plan on having my son when I was in college. So,
Sure.
There was a lot going on. And I remember going to Roger and talking to him and being like, I really want to do this thing. And I just wasn't sure if it was the right thing for my family, because the safer route was definitely going just getting the teaching degree and being an art teacher,
Sure.
but I really wanted to do it, and he knew I wanted to do it, and he was like, he said, you have to do it, and this is the only way it'll stick. I remember him saying that.
Hmm.
And it's intense, I mean, it was a 3-year art program. I had 2 kids, and plus I was doing this other degree. So it was a lot. I was teaching
Wow.
metalsmithing, and I was teaching art history because I had a opportunity to get an assistantship. So I was lucky. My school was paid for, and they even paid me. So I did have some income from all of it. Um,
Wow.
but Roger would allow other people from the community to come in and take classes and sign. They didn't have to necessarily be enrolled in a program. He was very open about wanting this community of artists. So Arlene was one of those. I mean, she was there and working, but she wasn't actively pursuing a degree. She already was very much, trained in what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there were several, people that were quite a bit older than me, that were women that were there doing that work, and it was a really special time. So.
Did you get the sense that, or do you get the sense now that people who do this kind of work also bring a spirituality to their work, or is that something that you find is unique to your process?
I in the sort of circles that I run in, I think that there is a fair amount of there's malas, people using stones. I'm a yogi, there's a lot of yogis that like jewelry that has meaning behind it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's an old tradition, like I was saying, of the sort of ancient jewelry, or I love to look at old African pieces, and pieces where
Mm-hmm.
people you see like the whole the whole picture of it being more than just something they're wearing, the meaning behind it. And so I think that is still out there. I think there's plenty of jewelry that is just that shiny things. But I think that a lot of people are interested in something that has a deeper meaning. I think people are
Mm-hmm.
drawn to that. So.
Mm-hmm. So, could you take us through the process of um, how a piece gets born? So, you go in your studio, your vintage Airstream trailer, and how do you start? What does it look like?
um I it's a lot of it doesn't start in the trailer. It's in my mind. It's I have an idea. I have either a color scheme that I'm being drawn to, or an idea that a lot of the symbols that I use are meaningful to me, like the Hamsa is about protection and the evil eye. So I think that a lot of those ideas are going around in my head. And then one of the ways I do my bronze pieces is I'll find a vintage piece of either a statue or um, a broken piece of a lamp. Like, a lot of times I repurpose things that I find. I use a lot of uh, vintage metals, and then I'll make a mold of the piece, and then I will cast it in the bronze. The way that I do my bronze work is, um, I have a kiln that does a burnout. It's a 15-hour process, basically, of burning out this binder, because it's a bronze clay that I use. But I guess a lot of it just sort of flows. It's not something like I have to sit down and say, okay, what am I going to do now? It's just there. It's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of always sort of flowing in, like, oh, I'm going to do that. Yep, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it
It
just
just
kind of
speaks
comes.
to you.
Yeah, yeah. And I did start doing handbags this year, um, and those require a little bit more sort of a sometimes of a thought process behind them in terms of the construction and things like that. So that requires a little more planning. Whereas with the jewelry, I'm kind of just I've done it for so long. It's kind of from the hip a lot of times, um, but in terms of the actual designs of the bags, a lot of that too is I use a lot of symbols, and I like to use things that are colorful and bright. So, yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I think
Yeah.
so. It sounds
Yeah.
like it's not you don't go in the trailer, meditate, and then necessarily start sketching, for example. It's a little bit more organic than that. It You just sort of hear something or see something in your mind, and then you start putting it together. Is that more accurate?
Yeah, just sort of just tapping into that. I can't
Mm-hmm.
draw. I'm terrible at drawing. So if I ever need anything drawn, or even with the bags, if I need a pattern, my husband is very patient and he will help me and he'll make the pattern for me. He'll draw it
Mm,
and I'll be like, "Yep, I want it to look like that." And then, so there's a little teamwork there with that sometimes.
mm.
He's good like that.
You were saying that you use unusual vintage materials, and I heard a story that you used a paint chip from a vintage Corvette to make a piece of jewelry. Is that true?
Yeah, there's this really cool material. It's called New Fordite, which is, a play on Ford, the motor
Mm,
company. And they
mm.
also refer to it as Detroit agate, because Detroit being the home of where so many cars used to be made. And so they would put the cars up on these tracks when they were painting them. Um, I'm sure they don't do it this way anymore. And all of that paint would build up on these tracks and create layers like you could imagine of the earth, so, and all different colors. So Corvettes are known for their sort of bright colors, right? And the red and the yellow. And so somebody, I don't know who was the first person, when they were like cleaning out of that, cleaning that stuff up, said this could be really cool and started making it into cabochons. So I found out about it and I thought this is awesome. They're all completely one of a kind. No two are going to
Mm-hmm.
be the same. I love that. And the colors are all swirly. And with the Corvette paint, a lot of it is very sparkly as well. It's got some metallicness to it. So they're very,
Mm-hmm.
very cool. And it's also a sort of not, it's a finite source of that. You know what I mean? It's like there is what there is out there.
I see. Yeah.
So
It's
I
like
think
the
that,
mine is closing.
yeah, yeah, I think there are people that are actually recreating it and making it somehow, just basically building up layers of paint. But
Mm-hmm.
but some of that original stuff is I find really interesting. So
I'm thinking about your aesthetic, and then I'm thinking about where you live, which is a small town in upstate New York. Um, and I'm wondering how those pieces fit together because your work is really avant-garde and unique. And how does that pair with Jamesville, New York?
I grew up in New York City. I grew up on Staten Island. My dad was born in the Village, and I would always go to art shows with my dad. My dad's a big art collector, so I had all that background. Um, but I really love my green space. I really love to be around nature. So I think there's a lot of really talented artists that being sensitive, I think a lot of artists tend to be on the sensitive side, even though a lot of them, I'm sure, live in major cities like New York being one of them, but also need some space around them. So for me, I just, I like having the sort of, it's almost like I live in a treehouse, having all this green space around me, and it feeds my work too. It keeps me grounded. So, um, And in terms of like living here and maybe this not being the fashion capital of the world, whatever. I mean, the way I approach fashion and what I wear is very, I just do what I do, and I don't really care about if it's like too much or over the top, you know what I mean? For anybody. So just because to do anything else would really not feel like I was being real.
Mm.
I found this box of old photos a couple days ago, and it was like uncovering a time capsule of 20 years and even older, because I found old pictures from my grandparents and things. But I found a few photos and I looked at them and I thought, wow, that's when you kind of thought you were like doing some conservative thing. And I was like, that so didn't work for you. I was like, I had some cardigan on and I was like, wow, it really just wasn't you. I'm just like, so I'm glad I got to where I am now. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know that I was faking then. I just think I was trying it on. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
I think we kind of do that. And then, at this point, almost 50, I really seriously don't care, and I know I get the eye roll maybe sometimes, but most of the people who know me and love me would expect nothing less than for me to show up in
Hmm.
whatever it is I'm wearing, and
You like,
so
I don't know if they're technically called tiaras, but you have head, what would you call those? Like something
I
you wear around your head. What is that called?
yeah, well, I did a series of horned headpieces.
Headpiece, okay.
Yeah, for I just wanted to do them, frankly, but then I ended up using them for Syracuse does have a fashion week.
Mm-hmm.
So there are fashion people in Syracuse doing interesting things.
Yeah.
And so they got to be worn on the runway for that, and I sold a bunch of them. Um, I do like headpieces. Again, it goes back to that sort of that ancient, just like in my head, you can sort of see some old ritual where somebody was putting something on. I mean, well, the kings and queens, right? I mean, they put the crown on
Mm-hmm.
their head, so it's kind of about that too. Just it being again a sense of power too. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but so many people are like, "Have you watched Game of Thrones? Is
Ah.
that where these came
It's,
from?" And I'm
oh.
like, I haven't watched Game of Thrones. I remember turning it on and they cut somebody's head off in the first couple minutes,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't know, I think I'm good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I haven't really watched it, but a lot of people who love that do love those headpieces. So
Yes, it seems very Viking and
yeah,
ancestral. You
yeah.
know, you're talking quite a bit about protection. And since most jewelry is worn by women, are you finding that more women are resonating with this idea of power and protection as the Me Too movement has really uh, gained traction?
I think so. I mean, I don't mean to sound like I want to fight or anything, but I've always felt like that, even before the Me Too movement. And I feel like it's out there now, but it's always been there. I mean, women have always had to deal with these issues. So, um, and again, not to get all sounding a little too new agey, but I do have sort of these sort of past life kind of deja vu things sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think in some other lifetime I either had to protect myself or I was some kind of warrior or something like that. And I think right now women need that. They need to feel powerful because it feels like some of our power is being taken away and we've worked really hard to get it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that women, I know the Evil Eye and the Hamsa and some of those pieces that are really very much about protection. My customers are like, I got my Evil Eye on today,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
Mhm.
I'm a Cancer too,
Mhm.
so we're all about our shells, and I think that's where a lot of the protection piece comes in for me too, because uh, I'm very sensitive, so I kind of creating that a little bit of a a boundary around myself is something that I need. So um,
Mm-hmm.
that's where that comes from too.
It's such an interesting intersection that you describe of this um, history, beauty, and function. You know,
Yeah.
the idea that when you have one of Michelle DaRin's pieces, it's not just interesting. It's not just like, wow, this comes from, you know, a Corvette paint shavings. It's got this historical aspect, and then it's got this very current aspect of, and when I wear it, I feel safer.
Yeah, I feel like I've asked my customers, to get feedback from them over the years, and the things that came up were they feel um, empowered, they feel sexy, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think badass came up a couple times. So like if that's how they're feeling when they're wearing my pieces, then I'm doing my job, because that's how I feel, and that's I think a nice thing to give back to women is yeah, you know what, and being sexy doesn't, I don't mean that in a not that that's a negative thing, but that has power too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sexual appeal does have power. Not that you want to manipulate or anything, but it's okay to feel sexy. I think like people want to look good. You know what I mean? You
Mm-hmm.
want to feel attractive. And that's the long history of adornment has been about that as well. It's been about, you know, becoming more attractive and all of those
And
things.
desirable. And
Yeah.
I think as we age, you know, that gets very complicated as we have more wrinkles and gray hair. Maybe the question becomes, what makes me feel sexy now? Because society says if I'm a little saggy and, you know, whatever, I'm not as desirable. And I love the idea of, wait a minute, I'm putting on this amulet and there's this sexual power behind it.
Absolutely. And, I have women say this a lot to me. They'll be like, oh, well, you can wear that. I can't wear that. Or, well, I don't really want to draw too much attention to my neck, because they start to get like a little saggy in their neck. And
Mm-hmm.
my response is always, if you have that necklace on, they're not looking at your neck. They're looking at the necklace. And
Mm-hmm.
I always encourage people, because I feel like there shouldn't be any rules. I think sometimes people want to be comfortable in what they're wearing, but I do try to encourage people, my customers, to sort of get out of their comfort zone and be like, you know what, you can wear that. A lot of times
Mm-hmm.
women who are a little shorter, they'll be like, well, I'm too short to carry that off. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
there are no rules. And then look at Louise Bourgeois, it's like 5 feet tall, making steel spiders that are just like could engulf,
The world.
yeah, you're just like, there's like something out of a horror movie, and you're like, wow, she did that. So I say bring it, wear it.
Mm-hmm. Do you get people who commission you, for example, saying, I want something to wear to this art opening and I want it to have this sort of power behind it or this characteristic? Not so much like I want it to be, you know, in this metal, but I want it to be have sort of more emotional aspects to it.
I do have people commission me often for something special to be worn, either for like I'm going to a wedding and I want something like this, or I mean it's always in the framework of how I work, but I do try to accommodate people. A lot of times people have somebody that's passed on to, and they'll ask me if I could make something to remember that person, and there might be something special for them about a symbol that
Hmm.
reminds them of some, so like hummingbirds and butterflies
Oh, I see.
um, and angels, obviously, and cardinals. Those sort of come up a lot of times when people are wanting something custom that is going to connect them to somebody that they've lost. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah, I see. Um, where can people look at your work and not just imagine it? Where can they find you, Michelle?
I have a website,
Mm-hmm.
which is michelledurinjewelry.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also in several stores in the area around Syracuse, in Fayetteville, Heidi's Boutique,
Mm-hmm.
um, Industry at Armory Square, downtown Syracuse. Also, Casanova Jewelry is going to be carrying my things very soon. And they're in Fayetteville and in Casanova, and they're also going to be in the Inner Harbor near Destiny Mall.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of a ways off, but that's going to be exciting too. And I had some things at Lily Bean down in Casanova. I also do a lot of art shows, so um, I can always be contacted through the website to find out what are
Mm-hmm.
the upcoming shows, and
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook and Instagram. I always post what my latest pieces are, as
Mm.
well as upcoming shows. So Instagram and Facebook are a really great way to see what's coming out of the oven, every day, because that's where I post pieces every day. So that's
That's
really
lovely.
nice.
And
Yeah.
can people actually buy things off of your website? Do you have sort of stock that they can choose
Yes.
from? Okay.
Yes, you can absolutely buy
Mm-hmm.
purchase right from the website.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I do, if people are local, I have appointments. I take appointments to my
Mm-hmm.
studio, so that's another option too. But the social media and the website are
Mm-hmm.
very big for people out of Syracuse, I would say.
So it's Michelle, Michelle DaRin, DARIN, jewelry.com. It has been so interesting learning about your work, Michelle. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you this morning.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. And please consider becoming a patron of the show. You will get access to exclusive bonuses, and you will be part of the Zestful Aging community. Keep us going strong. Go to patreon.com/zestfulaging. See you next time for another episode of Zestful Aging.